The shuttle shook as it passed through the docking field, gripped the armrest and looked out the small window. The flagship filled his entire view. It was massive. The ship stretched for kilometers, its dark metal surface covered with weapons and sensor arrays. Lights blinked along its hull like stars trapped in iron. "First time seeing a capital ship?" asked Lieutenant Park from the seat beside him. Nodded slowly. "Pictures don't do it justice." "Nothing about the matches their pictures," said with a small laugh. "Wait until you meet them in person." The shuttle entered the docking bay and landed with a soft thump, stood up, adjusted his uniform, and picked up his bag. He was one of 12 humans assigned to the flagship Crimson Ascent as part of Earth's new Galactic Alliance program. It was supposed to be an honor. Most humans saw it as a test to see if their species could survive among the older races. The airlock opened and stepped onto metal for the first time. The docking bay was enormous. Ships of various sizes sat in neat rows. Soldiers moved between them with purpose. They were tall, most of them standing over 2 meters. Their skin had a faint silver shine, and their eyes glowed with soft light in colors of blue, gold, or violet. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy by comparison. An officer approached the group of humans. She had sharp features and cold blue eyes. Her uniform was decorated with medals and symbols that did not recognize. "Welcome to the Crimson Ascent," she said. Her voice was flat without warmth. "I am Senior Lieutenant. You will follow me to processing." The humans followed in silence, noticed how the crew members looked at them. Some showed curiosity. Most showed something closer to pity. A few showed open disgust. Humans were new to the galactic stage. Earth had only made contact with alien life 15 years ago. In that time, humanity had learned a difficult truth. The galaxy was old, very old. Species like the had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had built empires, fought wars, and developed technology that humans could barely understand. And humans were considered children, weak, fragile, short-lived. The processing center was a large room filled with stations where officers recorded data about the new arrivals, waited his turn, watching how the other humans reacted to the environment. Some looked nervous, others tried to appear confident. None of them truly felt comfortable. When reached the front of the line, a technician scanned him with a device. The technician read from his screen: human, male, age 28 Earth years, military specialty, ground combat and tactical coordination. The technician looked up at him with golden eyes. "Your species lives for approximately 80 years, correct?" "On average," replied. The technician made a sound that might have been amusement. "I have uniforms older than your entire." Said nothing. There was nothing to say. After processing, the humans were led to their quarters. The rooms were small but functional. Set down his bag and sat on the bed. Through the window, he could see the stars moving slowly as the ship adjusted its position. A knock came at his door, stood outside. "Some of the officers are gathering in the observation lounge," she said. "Apparently they want to meet the new humans. You coming?" Considered refusing. He was tired from the journey, but he knew that hiding in his room would not help him survive this assignment. "Let's go," he said. The observation lounge was beautiful. One entire wall was made of transparent material that showed the vastness of space. Officers stood in small groups, talking quietly. They turned to look as the humans entered. One stepped forward. He was large even by standards, with violet eyes and a scar across his jaw. "So these are the humans," he said loudly, "the pets of the Alliance." Some of them laughed. The humans shifted uncomfortably. "Tell me, little ones," they continued, "why should we trust you to fight beside us? Your bodies break easily. Your minds are slow. You cannot even survive in vacuum without machines." "Neither can you," said calmly. The room went quiet. They turned his full attention to, "What did you say?" "You cannot survive in vacuum either," repeated. You need suits just like we do. You need ships. You need air and water and food. The only difference is how long we can hold our breath." They stepped closer. He towered over by nearly half a meter. "You dare speak to me with such disrespect? I have killed enemies across a dozen worlds. I have served the Empire for over 200 years. Looked up at him without backing away. "And I have been alive for 28 years. That means I have less time to waste on people who measure worth by height." For a long moment, no one moved. The eyes burned with anger. His hand moved toward the blade at his belt. "Enough." The voice came from above. Everyone looked up toward the upper level of the lounge. A female stood at the railing. She wore the uniform of a high commander, decorated with more symbols than could count. Her hair was white like fresh snow, and her eyes were silver, rare even among her people. She carried herself with the weight of absolute authority. "Commander," someone whispered. He immediately stepped back and lowered his head. "Commander, I was merely—" "You were testing the new arrivals," said smoothly, "and one of them passed your test." She looked down with an expression he could not read. "Return to your duties, Lieutenant, all of you." They dispersed quickly. The officer threw one last look before leaving. It was not a friendly look. Descended the stairs slowly. She approached the group of humans but stopped in front of. "Your name?" she asked. "Commander." She studied him for a moment. Her silver eyes moved across his face as if searching for something. "You did not show fear," she observed. "Lieutenant has killed many enemies in single combat. Most beings show physiological responses when threatened by him. Increased heart rate, sweat, trembling." She tilted her head slightly. "You showed none of these." Was not sure how to respond. "I was afraid, Commander. I just did not see the point in showing it." Something flickered in silver eyes. Interest perhaps, or curiosity. "Humans," she said quietly, almost to herself. Curiously unreadable. She turned and walked away without another word. Watched her go, feeling the weight of that brief encounter settle into his chest. Moved to stand beside him. What was that about? "I have no idea," admitted. But somewhere deep in his mind, he knew that something important had just happened. He could not explain it. He could not define it. But when Commander had looked at him, he had felt seen in a way that went beyond simple observation. It was the first night of many aboard the Crimson Ascent. It would not be the last time silver eyes found him across a crowded room. 3 weeks passed aboard the Crimson Ascent, learned the ship's layout, memorized the names of important officers, and tried his best to understand culture. It was not easy. They had thousands of years of traditions, and many of them made no sense to human minds. One morning was summoned to an assembly hall he had never visited before. When he arrived, he found all 12 humans standing in a line. Officers filled the seats around them, watching with interest. Leaned toward him. "Do you know what this is about?" "No idea," whispered back. An official stepped onto the raised platform at the front of the hall. He was old, with deep lines on his silver face and eyes that had faded to pale blue. "Today we conduct the ceremony," the official announced. "As required by military law, all auxiliary soldiers serving in forces must be claimed by a sponsoring officer. The sponsor accepts responsibility for the auxiliary's conduct, training, and honor. In return, the auxiliary serves under their sponsor's name and protection." Frowned. This sounded like a formal adoption system, but for soldiers. He noticed that some of the officers in the audience seemed eager, while others looked bored. The official continued. "Sponsors will now come forward to make their claims." One by one, officers stood and walked to the platform. They spoke formal words and touched the shoulders of the humans they wanted to claim. Most of the claiming seemed random. Some officers wanted humans because they were curious about the species. Others seemed to view it as a duty they wanted to complete quickly. Watched as his fellow humans were claimed. was taken by a stern female officer who specialized in communications. Another human was claimed by the lieutenant, which made feel sorry for his colleague. Soon only remained unclaimed. The hall grew quiet, stood alone on the platform, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes. Of Earth, the official said, you remain unclaimed. Are there no sponsors willing to take responsibility for this auxiliary? Silence. Kept his face calm, but inside he felt the sting of rejection. Was he so unwanted? Had his confrontation with Lieutenant made him untouchable? He noticed Commander in the upper gallery. She was watching him with those unreadable silver eyes. Her hand rested on the railing, and for a moment it seemed like she might speak. Her lips parted slightly. But before any sound came from, another voice rang out. I will claim him. Everyone turned. A young female officer rose from her seat and walked toward the platform. She was beautiful in the sharp, elegant way of her species, with golden eyes and dark hair that fell past her shoulders. Her uniform indicated the rank of captain. Captain, the official said with mild surprise, you wish to claim this human? I do, climbed onto the platform and stood before. She was slightly taller than him and she studied his face with open curiosity. He interests me, the human who spoke back to Lieutenant, the one who showed no fear, she smiled. I think he will bring honor to my name. The official nodded, then speak the words. Placed her hand on shoulder. Her touch was cool and firm. I, captain of house, claim this warrior as my own under the sacred bond of, his victories are my victories, his failures are my failures, his life is tied to my honor until death or release. She looked into his eyes. Do you accept this bond? Hesitated for only a second. He had no real choice. Without a sponsor, he would be sent back to Earth in disgrace. I accept, he said. Smiled wider. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small pendant on a chain. It was made of dark metal, shaped like a curved blade surrounded by stars. Wear this always, she said, placing it around his neck. It marks you as mine. The ceremony ended. The crowd dispersed, touched the pendant at his chest, trying to understand what had just happened. Led him out of the hall and into a quiet corridor. You seem confused, she observed. I am, admitted. I thought that was just administrative, like paperwork. Laughed. It was a genuine sound full of amusement. Paperwork. No, human, thee is sacred. It is a bond deeper than friendship, sometimes deeper than family. Your actions reflect on me. Your honor is my honor. She touched the pendant on his chest. You belong to me now. In the eyes of law, I am responsible for everything you do. Process this information, and if I fail, if I bring dishonor, then I share that dishonor, said simply. It would damage my reputation, my career, possibly my family name, she shrugged. But I do not think you will fail. I watched you stand against. You have something inside you that interests me. Why did you claim me? Asked truly. Considered the question. Because humans are new, because no one knows what you are capable of, and because, she paused, looking past him down the corridor. Her expression changed slightly. Because I wanted to claim you before someone else did. Followed her gaze. Commander stood at the far end of the corridor. She was watching them. Even from this distance, could see something cold in her silver eyes. Raised her hand in a respectful greeting. Commander. Did not respond. She simply looked at them for a long moment, then turned and walked away. Let out a small breath. Interesting. What? Asked. Nothing, smile returned, but it seemed forced now. Come, I will show you your new duties. As my claimed warrior, you will serve in my unit directly. We have much work to do. She walked away and followed. Over the next few days, learned more about the bond. It was ancient, dating back thousands of years to when they were still fighting wars on their home world. A sponsor and their claimed warrior were expected to fight together, trust each other completely, and protect each other's honor with their lives. The bond could only be broken in 3 ways: death, formal release which required both parties to agree, or betrayal so severe that the bond shattered on its own. Some bonds grew into deep friendships, others grew into something more than friendship. History was filled with stories of sponsors and claimed warriors who became partners in all things. Was not sure what wanted from their bond. She was friendly, curious, and seemed genuinely interested in learning about human culture. But there was also something calculating behind her golden eyes. She wanted something from this arrangement. He just could not figure out what. One evening found him in the mess hall, eating alone. "I heard you got claimed by Captain," she said, sitting across from him. "Everyone is talking about it." "Why?" asked. "Because is ambitious. She comes from a powerful family and she wants to rise through the ranks quickly." Lowered her voice. "Some people think she claimed you because you caught Commander's attention. Having a human that a high commander noticed might bring prestige." Frowned. "I'm a tool for her advancement." "Maybe, maybe not," shrugged. "Politics are complicated, just be careful, the bond ties you to her completely. If she rises, you rise with her, but if she falls—" "I fall too," finished. He touched the pendant at his chest. It felt heavier now than when had first placed it there. That night lay awake in his quarters, thinking about Commander. She had almost spoken at the ceremony. She had almost claimed him herself. He was certain of it. Why had she hesitated? And why did it bother him so much that she had? The alarm woke from deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his quarters. A voice spoke through the ship's communication system, calm but urgent. "All combat personnel report to stations. Distress signal received from mining colony. Attack in progress. Repeat, attack in progress." Was moving before the message finished. He pulled on his combat armor, grabbed his weapons, and ran toward the deployment bay. All around him, soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. Their silver faces showed no fear, only focus. He found at the command station for their unit. She was already giving orders, her golden eyes sharp and alert. She said when she saw him, "Good, you will be in the ground assault team. They have taken the colony's central processing facility. Our mission is to clear them out and rescue any survivors." "Understood," said. They were one of the most feared species in the galaxy. They were creatures, standing nearly 3 meters tall with armored bodies and blade-like arms. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They simply consumed everything in their path, stripping planets of resources and life. The shuttle ride to the planet's surface was tense. Sat among warriors, all of them larger and stronger than him. They checked their weapons and murmured prayers to ancient gods. One soldier looked at with something like pity. "Stay behind us, human. They are not like your Earth enemies. They feel no pain. They know no fear. They will keep fighting until every piece of their body is destroyed." Nodded but said nothing. The shuttle landed hard. The doors opened to reveal chaos. The mining colony was burning. Buildings had been torn apart. Bodies lay in the streets, both colonists and attackers. The air smelled like smoke and something worse, the chemical stench of blood. His voice came through the communication device. "All units advance. Primary objective is the processing facility. Secondary objective is civilian rescue. Move." The team moved forward through the ruined streets. They encountered almost immediately. The creatures were exactly as horrible as had imagined. They moved fast despite their size, their multiple legs carrying them across debris with terrifying grace. Their blade arms cut through metal and flesh with equal ease. Their eyes were clusters of black orbs that reflected no light. They fought with skill and courage. Their energy weapons burned holes through armor. Their blades found weak points in joints and necks, but for every that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. Stayed close to his unit, firing his human-made rifle at any that came near. He discovered something useful. Human weapons used a different type of ammunition than ones. The solid projectiles penetrated armor in ways that energy beams sometimes did not. Human weapons, a soldier said with surprise. They work well against these creatures. Kinetic energy, explained while reloading, punches through hard materials. The battle continued. They pushed deeper into the colony, clearing building after building, lost track of time. His world narrowed to the next target, the next corner, the next breath. Then everything went wrong. A massive warrior, larger than any had seen before, burst through a wall to their left. It was a command creature, recognizable by the bony crown on its head. It moved faster than should have been possible for something so large. It headed straight for. Did not think he moved. He threw himself between the creature and his sponsor, raising his rifle. This blade arm came down like an executioner's sword, twisted but not fast enough. The blade caught his side, cutting through his armor and into the flesh beneath. The pain was incredible, but had trained for pain. Human soldiers on Earth learned to fight through injuries that would stop other species. It was one of the few advantages his people had, their stubborn refusal to stop. He fired point-blank into this face. Once, twice, 3 times, the creature staggered back. Another soldier finished it with a blade through the neck. Fell to his knees, blood poured from his wound. Was beside him, her golden eyes were wide with shock. "Medical team, I need a medical team now." "I am fine," said, though he knew he was not. "We need to keep moving." "You are bleeding badly, you need." An explosion nearby knocked them both down. When looked up, he saw that their unit had been separated from the main force. Warriors were surrounding them. The communication devices were filled with static. Something was jamming the signals. Tried to stand, but her leg was twisted at a bad angle. The explosion had broken something. "I cannot walk," she said. Her voice was calm but could see fear in her eyes. "You should go, find the others. I will hold them off." "No," said. "That is an order." With respect, Captain No forced himself to his feet. His side screamed with pain. He ignored it. "You are my sponsor. The bond means I protect your honor with my life. If I leave you here, I bring dishonor to both of us." Stared at him. "You will die." "Maybe," admitted, "but I will not leave." He reloaded his rifle, checked his sidearm, and picked up a fallen blade. Then he stood between and the approaching. What followed was not a battle, it was survival. Fought like he had never fought before. He shot until his rifle ran empty, then switched to his sidearm. When that ran empty, he used the blade. When I knocked the blade from his hand, he used his fists and his teeth and anything else he could find. They kept coming, kept fighting. At some point, he stopped feeling the pain. His body was covered in cuts and burns and bruises, but none of it seemed to matter. There was only the next enemy, the next second, the next breath. When they finally stopped coming, realized that he had been fighting for nearly an hour. Bodies surrounded him. His own blood mixed with fluid on the ground. Was staring at him with an expression he could not understand. "You are still alive," she whispered. "That should not be possible." Looked down at his body. She was right. He had wounds that should have killed him several times over, but somehow his heart was still beating. "Humans are stubborn," he said, then he collapsed. He woke briefly during the evacuation. Someone was carrying him. No, he was carrying someone. His arms held against his chest. His legs moved through the ruined streets, one step at a time. "Put me down," said. "You are hurt worse than I am." "Almost there," mumbled. He could see the evacuation shuttles in the distance, just a little further. He carried her 3 kilometers through enemy territory. Later, the medical reports would show that he did this with 7 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and enough blood lost to kill 2. Humans, it turned out, did not know when they were supposed to die. On the flagship, Commander watched the combat footage in her private quarters. She watched it 3 times. She watched the moment when threw himself in front of the commander. She watched him fight for an hour against impossible odds. She watched him carry his sponsor to safety through a body that was more wound than flesh. When the footage ended, she sat in silence for a long time. Curiously unreadable, she whispered to herself. But that was no longer true. She could read perfectly now. She understood what drove him, what made him fight, what made him refuse to stop. And understanding him made everything so much more complicated. Spent 2 weeks in the medical bay. The doctors were amazed that he survived at all. They were even more amazed at how quickly he healed. Human biology is fascinating, one doctor told him during a routine examination. Your species should not be able to recover from injuries like yours. Yet here you are, nearly whole again. We are stubborn, said. It was becoming his standard answer. The doctor made a note on her device. Stubborn is not a medical term, but I suppose it will have to do. News of actions at the mining colony spread through the ship. Who had once ignored him now nodded with respect when he passed. Some even stopped to speak with him, asking questions about human physiology and endurance. Lieutenant, the officer who had confronted on his first day, visited the medical bay once. He stood at the foot of his bed and said nothing for a long moment. I was wrong about you, finally said. You have the heart of a warrior. I offer my apology for my earlier words. Accepted the apology with a nod. Left without another word, but something had changed between them. Visited every day. Her leg had healed quickly, recovered faster than humans in most ways. She sat beside his bed and talked about ship business, upcoming missions, and the political situation in the galaxy. But there was something different in how she looked at him now. I have been thinking about what you did, she said one evening. You almost died for me. You carried me through enemy territory when your own body was broken. Why? You are my sponsor, replied. The bond. No, interrupted. Do not give me formal answers. Tell me the truth. Was quiet for a moment. Because leaving you behind was never an option. Not because of duty or honor or bonds. Because I could not live with myself if I did. His golden eyes softened. Humans are strange creatures. So I have been told. When was released from the medical bay, he found that his duties had changed. He was no longer just a soldier in his unit. He had been promoted to a special advisory position, working directly with the Tactical Planning Division. This new position brought him into contact with Commander. The first meeting was formal. Summoned several officers to discuss strategy for the ongoing conflict with the was included because of his combat experience and his knowledge of human tactics. Sat at the head of the table, her silver eyes moving from face to face as officers presented their reports. When it was turn, she gave him her full attention. Soldier, she said, you have fought thee in close combat. What are your observations? Presented his analysis. He talked about weaknesses, their communication patterns, their response to different weapons, listened without interruption. When he finished, she nodded slowly. Your insights are valuable. I want weekly reports from you on human tactical perspectives. Report to my office. The other officers exchanged surprised looks. Commander rarely requested regular meetings with anyone below captain rank. Yes, Commander said. The weekly meetings became a regular part of his life. At first, they were purely professional, asked questions about human history, military strategy, and culture. She seemed genuinely interested in understanding his species. But as weeks passed, the meetings grew longer. The topics expanded beyond military matters, asked about Earth, its oceans, its mountains, its cities. She asked about human art and music and literature. She asked about his family, his childhood, his dreams before joining the military. Found himself talking more freely than he ever had with anyone on the ship. There was something about silver eyes that made him want to share things he usually kept hidden. One evening, after a particularly long meeting, stood at the window of her office, looking out at the stars. "My people live for hundreds of years," she said quietly, "sometimes thousands. We have time to learn, to grow, to change, but sometimes I think that our long lives make us slow." She turned to look at him. "You humans burn so brightly because you have so little time. Everything is urgent for you. Everything matters." "Is that a bad thing?" asked. "I do not know," admitted, "but I find it beautiful." Did not know how to respond to that. The air in the room felt different somehow, heavier, charged with something unspoken. A knock at the door broke the moment. A junior officer entered with reports that needed attention, took the opportunity to leave. He did not see the way, eyes followed him as he walked away. Found him in the observation lounge later that night. "You have been spending a lot of time with Commander," she observed, sitting beside him. She asked for tactical reports, said, "I am following orders." "Tactical reports do not usually take 3 hours, smiled, "and they do not usually involve discussions about Earth poetry." "How do you know about that?" "Ship gossip travels fast," smile faded slightly. "I am not judging you, but be careful, is one of the most powerful officers in the fleet, and you already belong to through the bond." "I know," said. "Do you? Because I think you are getting into something complicated." Looked at him with concern in her eyes. "Politics around thee are serious. If wants you, she cannot just take you. The bond with is legally binding. It would cause a scandal at minimum, a political crisis at worst." Frowned. "Why would she want me? I am just a human soldier." Laughed softly. "Oh, you really do not see it, do you? You saved your sponsor's life at the cost of your own body. You fight like no human they have ever seen. You speak to commanders as equals and show no fear. You are not just a human soldier anymore. You are something new, something they do not understand." She paused. "And that makes you fascinating to them, especially to someone like who has seen everything else the galaxy has to offer." Sat with that thought for a long time after left. The next morning he saw in the corridor. She stopped when she saw him and something flickered across her face. It was gone quickly, replaced by her usual friendly smile. She said, "I heard you had another meeting with Commander last night." "Yes, tactical reports." "Of course." Touched the pendant that hung around his neck, the symbol of her claim on him. "You have been busy lately. We should spend more time together. There is a formal dinner in 3 days. You will attend as my guest." It was not a question. "I would be honored," said. Smiled, but her golden eyes were calculating. She had noticed the same thing had noticed, the growing connection between and she was not happy about it. That night lay awake in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. The pendant felt heavy on his chest. He thought about who had claimed him when no one else would. He thought about whose silver eyes seemed to see things inside him that he did not know existed. He thought about the strange path that had brought him here, to a ship full of ancient warriors, trapped between 2 powerful women and a bond he did not fully understand. Outside his window, the stars burned cold and distant. They offered no answers. Somewhere on the ship, Commander sat alone in her quarters, reviewing combat footage for the 100th time. She watched a human soldier throw himself in front of a monster. She watched him fight when he should have died. She watched him carry his sponsor to safety through a body that was barely holding together. "I should have claimed you," she whispered to the screen. The words hung in the empty air. She had hesitated. She had been too proud, too cautious, too bound by her position, and in that moment of hesitation had taken what it wanted. Now the bond stood between them like a wall, sacred, unbreakable. Or was it? The War Council was tense. Officers sat around the holographic display table, watching red dots spread across the map like a disease. Each dot represented a ship. There were hundreds of them moving toward a single point. IV, a supply world that fed 16 alliance systems, home to 3 million civilians. The enemy fleet outnumbers ours 4 to 1, Admiral said, his voice heavy. High Command has ordered a strategic withdrawal. We are to preserve our forces for future engagements. Silence filled the room. Everyone understood what this meant. IV would fall. 3 million people would die. Commander stood slowly. Her silver eyes were cold as ice. No, she said. The Admiral looked at her with surprise. Commander, these are direct orders from. I heard the orders. His voice cut through the room like a blade. I refuse to follow them. Whispers spread through the assembled officers. Refusing high command orders was unheard of. It could end a career. It could mean execution. Commander, the Admiral said carefully, you understand the consequences of what you are saying. I understand that 3 million people will die if we leave. Stepped forward, her presence filling the room. I understand that they will strip that world bare and use its resources to fuel their next attack. I understand that retreat here means defeat everywhere. She looked around at the other officers. I will not abandon those people. If High Command wishes to remove me from command, they may do so. But until then, I fight. The room was silent. Then one by one officers began to stand. Lieutenant was first, then captain, then dozens of others rising to their feet in support. Admiral sighed heavily. It seems I am outvoted by my own officers. He shook his head, but there was something like respect in his eyes. Very well, Commander. What is your plan? Turn to the holographic map. We cannot defeat their fleet in direct combat, but we do not need to defeat them. We need to delay them long enough for civilian evacuation. IV has 17 major population centers. If we can hold them for 48 hours, we can save most of the population. Hold them how? Someone asked. Ground defense, pointed to key positions on the map. They prefer to secure planetary surfaces before moving to the next target. They will land troops. We will make them pay for every kilometer they try to take. She paused. I need volunteers. This will be a delaying action. Casualties will be severe. I will not order anyone to participate. Stood up before he realized he was moving. I volunteer. Looked at him. Something passed between them, a silent communication that needed no words. Noted soldier, she said. Her voice was formal, but her eyes were not. Stood next. I volunteer. Then lieutenant. Then more and more, until nearly every officer in the room was standing. The battle for IV began 6 hours later. Had never seen anything like it. The sky burned with weapons fire as ships fought to slow the advance. Landing craft fell like rain, carrying enemy troops to the surface. Explosions shook the ground beneath his feet. He was assigned to defend a critical supply route connecting the northern evacuation zone to the spaceport. If they cut this route, thousands of civilians would be trapped. The first wave came at dawn. Warriors poured through the streets, their blade arms cutting through everything in their path. Fought alongside soldiers, using his human rifle and blade together. The mixture of fighting styles confused the enemy. They were not prepared for human tactics. Hours passed. The sun rose and fell, lost track of how many he killed. He stopped counting his own wounds. Word came through the communication device that other defensive positions were falling. They were pushing through faster than expected. The evacuation was behind schedule. All units fall back to secondary positions, a command voice ordered. But look down the route. He could see civilians still moving in the distance, families with children, elderly people who could not move quickly. If his position fell now, they would catch them. Negative, said into his communicator. Position 7 will hold. Soldier, you are ordered to retreat. Your position is about to be overwhelmed. The civilians are not clear yet. We hold. Silence on the communicator. Then Commander's voice came through, cold and commanding. All nearby units, reinforce position 7. Soldier, you will have support in 20 minutes. Can you hold? Looked at the approaching swarm. 20 minutes might as well have been 20 years. "We will hold," he said. What followed was the longest 20 minutes of his life. He fought at the where the supply route narrowed between two collapsed buildings. It was a natural defensive position that could only come at him a few at a time, but they kept coming, wave after wave, endless and relentless. His rifle ran empty. His sidearm ran empty. His blade broke against armor. He picked up fallen weapons and alike and kept fighting. At some point, he realized he was alone. The other defenders had fallen or retreated. It was just him and the endless stream of enemies. He should have died. Every second he should have died. But something inside him refused to accept death. Something stubborn and human and impossible. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found standing in a pile of bodies. He was covered in blood, mostly his own. His armor was destroyed. He had wounds that would kill most beings 3 times over. But he was alive, and the had held. The civilians escaped. The battle continued for another 36 hours, was evacuated to a medical ship, but refused to stay. He returned to the surface with bandages still fresh on his wounds. "You should be dead," a medic told him. "I have been told that before," replied. In the end, the forces held IV long enough to evacuate 2,800,000 civilians. It was not everyone. Some were lost when defensive positions collapsed, but it was far more than anyone had thought possible. They eventually broke through and claimed the planet, but they found it empty. No resources to strip, no slaves to take, just ruins and the bodies of their own fallen warriors. Commander stood on the bridge of the Crimson Ascent as the fleet. She watched the planet shrink in its surface by battle. "Casualty reports?" she asked. "Significant losses," her second officer replied, "but far below projections. The ground defense exceeded all expectations." He paused, particularly at position 7. The human held alone for nearly 11 hours total during the engagement. Our analysts are struggling to explain how he survived. Did not respond. She did not need analysts to explain. She understood him better than any report could describe. She went to the medical bay. The staff tried to stop her. It was late, patients were resting, but she was commander. No one truly argued. She found him in a recovery pod, unconscious, his body wrapped in healing materials. The monitors showed vital signs that flickered between stable and critical, never settling on either. She sat beside him. For 3 days, she did not leave except for essential duties. On the 3rd day, found her there. The younger officer stood in the doorway, watching Svigil with unreadable golden eyes. "You care for him," said. It was not a question. Did not look away from his face. "Yes. He is mine, the bond is clear." "I know." Stepped closer. "Do you intend to challenge my claim?" Now turned, her silver eyes met his golden ones. "The bond is sacred. I would not dishonor you or him by challenging it." She paused. "But you should know the truth. I should have claimed him first. I wanted to. I hesitated and you did not. That was my failure, not yours." Absorbed these words in silence. Then she turned and walked away. Returned her gaze to. His hand lay on the edge of the pod. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and touched it. "Come back," she whispered. "There is still more to say." Woke to the soft hum of medical equipment. Light filtered through the recovery pod's transparent cover, gentle and warm. He blinked several times, trying to remember where he was and how he got there. The battle, position 7, 11 hours of fighting, bodies everywhere. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain flared through his entire body, sharp and insistent. "Easy," a voice said. A medic appeared at his side, pressing him gently back down. "You have been unconscious for 5 days. Your body is still healing." 5 days, his voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. "You should be dead, soldier." The medic shook her head in disbelief. 23 broken bones, massive internal bleeding, damage to every major organ system, By all medical understanding, your body should have stopped functioning during the battle, yet here you are. Stubborn managed. So everyone keeps saying. The medic made some adjustments to his monitors. You have visitors waiting. Shall I send them in? Nodded. Came first. She looked at him with eyes that were red from recent tears, though she tried to hide it behind a smile. You idiot, she said, sitting beside him. 11 hours. You held a position alone for 11 hours. Someone had to. No one had to. That was the point of retreat orders. She took his hand. You scared everyone. The entire alliance is talking about what you did. They are calling you the Iron Human. Closed his eyes. He did not feel like iron. He felt like broken glass held together by bandages. Other visitors came over the following days. Lieutenant arrived with a bottle of something that smelled like engine fuel and turned out to be traditional victory drink. Soldiers from his unit came to pay respects. Even Admiral visited briefly, nodding with an expression of deep respect. Came every day, sitting beside him for hours. She did not say much. Sometimes she just watched him, her golden eyes filled with thoughts she did not share. One evening, when they were alone, she finally spoke. The High Council has made a decision, she said, about your actions at IV. Looked at her. Am I in trouble for disobeying retreat orders? Laughed softly. No, the opposite actually. She paused, choosing her words carefully. You are being awarded the Honor Seal. It is the highest military recognition in the Empire. Did not understand the significance. That sounds important. It is more than important. That has been given only 47 times in 3,000 years. It has never been given to a non. Looked at him with something like awe. You will be the first. The ceremony will be broadcast across the entire alliance. I was just doing my job, said. Those civilians needed time to escape. That is exactly why you are receiving it. Touched his face gently. You do not see yourself the way others see you. You never have. But after this ceremony, everyone in the galaxy will know your name. The ceremony was held 2 weeks later, after had healed enough to stand on his own. The Grand Hall of the Crimson Ascent was decorated with banners representing every Alliance species. Thousands of officers and dignitaries filled the seats. Holographic projectors broadcast the event to billions of viewers across dozens of systems. Stood at the center of the hall, wearing a formal uniform that had been specially made for him. It combined human military style with elements. The pendant hung at his chest, visible to everyone. Commander approached from the elevated platform. She wore her ceremonial armor, white and silver, with symbols of her rank and achievements covering every surface. Her white hair was arranged in an elaborate traditional style. She looked like a warrior goddess from ancient myths. The hall fell silent as she descended the stairs and stopped before. She held a small box in her hands. Inside was a seal made of an alloy that glowed with inner light. It was warm to the touch, almost alive. His voice rang through the hall, clear and strong. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors created to honor those who exceeded all expectations of courage. It was given to warriors who did not simply fight battles. They changed the meaning of what battle could be. They showed us that limits exist only in the mind, that the impossible is merely the untried. She looked at, and despite the thousands of witnesses, it felt like they were alone. Of Earth, you came to us as an unknown, a member of a young species that we thought we understood. You showed us that we understood nothing. Her voice softened slightly. You held a line that should have fallen. You bled for people who were not your own. You carried your sponsor to safety through a body that should have stopped working. You refused to die when death was all that logic permitted. She opened the box and lifted the honor seal. It pulsed with light in her hands. You have bled for us. You have broken for us. You have shown us what we had forgotten, that true strength is not in the body but in the will that drives it. She pressed the seal into his open palm. The light flowed into his skin, leaving a permanent mark, a glowing symbol that would stay with him forever. "Of Earth," said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall and beyond, "you are no longer an auxiliary. You are in spirit. From this day forward you stand as equal to any warrior of our people. Your name will be recorded in our histories. Your deeds will be taught to our children. Your honor is our honor now and forever." The hall erupted in applause. The sound was overwhelming, a wave of recognition and respect that washed over like a physical force. But he barely heard it. He was looking at space. Behind the formal mask, behind the commander's dignity, he saw something raw and real. Her silver eyes glistened with emotions that rarely showed in public. The ceremony continued with speeches and celebrations, but moved through it in a daze. People congratulated him. Dignitaries shook his hand. Journalists asked questions he answered without really hearing himself speak. Through it all, he was aware of his presence. She had retreated to the edge of the hall after the presentation, watching from a distance. Every time he looked toward her, she was already looking at him. When the formal events finally ended and guests began to disperse, made his way through the crowd, he stopped briefly when intercepted him. "Congratulations," she said. Her smile was warm but complicated. "You have made me proud. You have brought honor to my name beyond anything I could have imagined." "Thank you," said, "for claiming me when no one else would, for giving me a chance." Smile flickered. "I did not give you anything. You earned everything through your own actions." She paused, looking toward the corner where stood. "Go, I think someone wants to speak with you." Hesitated. "Go," she repeated, softer this time. "We will talk later, but right now go." He found at the observation deck entrance. She slipped inside and he followed. The deck was empty except for the two of them. Stars filled the viewport, countless points of light against the endless black. Stood with her back to him, looking out at the universe. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then's voice came, quiet and vulnerable in a way he had never heard before. "I should have claimed you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. "When you first arrived, I dismissed you. Another fragile human, I thought. I was proud. I was a commander. Why should I lower myself to sponsor an unknown auxiliary?" She turned to face him. The mask was gone now. What remained was simply not the commander, not the legend, just a woman who had made a mistake she could not take back. "But I watched you. I watched you stand when others fled. I watched you speak truth to those who meant to intimidate you. And I knew even then that you were different." Her voice caught slightly. "I waited too long, and claimed what I was too proud to reach for." The stars continued their slow dance outside the observation deck. Stood still, feeling the weight of words settle into his chest. She had turned away again, as if looking at him while speaking such truths was too difficult. "I have lived for over 600 years, continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have commanded fleets. I have ended wars. I have seen empires rise and fall. I thought I understood strength. I thought I understood courage." She laughed bitterly. "Then a human, a member of a species we considered children, showed me that I understood nothing." Took a step closer. "Commander." She corrected, still not turning. "Just here now, no ranks, no titles, just us." Said, her name felt different on his tongue, more personal, more real. She finally turned to face him. Her silver eyes were bright with unshed tears, something he had never thought he would see from the legendary commander. "I sat beside your medical pod for 3 days, she said. "Did you know that? When you were unconscious after IV, I watched your monitors. I watched you fight death in your sleep the same way you fought the stubborn, relentless, refusing to accept the logical outcome." Had not known, no one had told him. "I told myself it was professional concern," continued. "You were a valuable asset. Your insights had helped our tactical planning. Your example had inspired the troops. Of course I would want you to survive." She shook her head. But I was lying to myself. I wanted you to survive because the thought of you dying was unbearable. She stepped toward him until only a small distance separated them. I have commanded thousands of soldiers. I have sent many of them to their deaths and felt the appropriate grief. But this was different. When I thought I might lose you, something inside me broke. Something I did not even know existed. Found his voice. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand what you mean to me. Hands trembled slightly at her sides, another thing he had never seen before. When I pressed the honor seal into your hand, it was not just recognition of your deeds. It was the closest I could come to claiming you without breaking sacred law. She touched the glowing mark on his palm. Her fingers traced its edges with gentle reverence. But you wears, the bond is sacred. It cannot be broken except through death, mutual release, or betrayal, and I would never ask you to dishonor yourself or her. Her voice cracked. So I am left with this, with words, with confession, with the knowledge that I had my chance and I let it slip away because of pride. Processed everything she had said. 600 years of life, and she had never felt this way before. The most powerful officer in the fleet, and she was standing before him, vulnerable and uncertain. He thought about his own feelings, the weekly meetings that had become the highlight of his existence, the way his heart beat faster when she entered a room, the hours he had spent thinking about her silver eyes and the rare moments when they showed warmth. He had been so focused on duty and survival that he had never stopped to examine what was growing inside him. Among humans, he said slowly, we have a saying. Looked at him, waiting. It is not about who claims you first. It is about who stays. For a moment, did not move. Then her eyes widened as she understood his meaning. The bond ties me to legally, continued. She claimed me when I had nothing. She gave me a chance when others would not. I owe her respect and honor for that, but bonds are not just about papers and ceremonies. He reached out and took his hand. They are about choice, about who you want beside you when everything falls apart. His fingers closed around his. When I was dying at position 7, said, when my body had nothing left and my mind was fading, I thought about you. I thought about our conversations, about the way you listen when I speak like my words actually matter, about the way you looked at me when no one else was watching. He stepped closer. I kept fighting because I was not ready to leave, not the ship, not the mission, you. A single tear fell from Silver Eye. She did not wipe it away. This is impossible, she whispered. The laws, the traditions, my position. Humans specialize in impossible, said with a small smile. We held it for 11 hours against endless enemies. We carried broken bodies across kilometers of battlefield. We refused to die when every logical analysis said we should. He squeezed her hand. Finding a path through complicated politics seems easier by comparison. For the first time since he had known her, smiled without restraint. It transformed her face, making her look younger, softer, more alive. You are remarkable, she said. I am stubborn, he replied. There is a difference. She laughed. It was a beautiful sound, free and genuine. Perhaps stubborn and remarkable are the same thing for your species. They stood together at the viewport, hands intertwined, watching the stars. The future was uncertain. The bond still existed, still held legal claim to. Society had traditions that stretched back. None of those problems had been solved. But somehow, they did not seem as impossible as they had before. The door to the observation deck opened quietly. They turned to see standing in the entrance. Started to pull his hand away from us, but held up her hand to stop him. No, she said, do not hide. I did not come here to cause trouble. She walked toward them slowly. Her golden eyes moved between and taking in their closeness, their joined hands. I heard everything, admitted. I was outside the door. I know I should not have listened, but I needed to understand. Began, I never meant to. I know, she stopped a few feet away from them. You have always been honest with me, even when honesty was difficult. She looked at, both of you have. Straightened slightly, preparing for confrontation. Captain, I want you to know that I never intended to fall in love with someone you could not have. Smile was sad but genuine. I believe you, Commander, just as I believe that never intended to develop feelings for anyone other than his sponsor. She sighed. But hearts do not follow intentions. She reached up and touched the pendant at its chest, the symbol of her claim, her right to him under law. I claimed you for selfish reasons, she admitted. I wanted prestige. I wanted to advance my career by sponsoring someone who had caught the attention of a high commander. I thought I was clever. She laughed softly at herself. I did not expect to actually care about you. I did not expect to see what kind of person you truly are. Her fingers traced the pendant one last time. Then she reached behind his neck and unclasped it. His eyes widened. What are you doing? The bond can be broken through mutual release, she said, when both parties agree to end it. She held the pendant in her palm, looking at it with something like farewell. I release you, freely and completely. Your honor is your own again. Your future is your own to choose. You would do this? Asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Looked at her directly. I claimed him when he was unknown. I watched him become something extraordinary, but I always knew, somewhere deep inside, that he was not truly mine. She smiled with genuine affection. You deserve to be with someone you love, not someone who happened to act quickly at a ceremony. She pressed the pendant into his hand. Keep it as a reminder of the bond we shared, of the battles we fought together, of the captain who learned what honor truly means by watching a human refuse to give up. Then she turned and walked toward the door. She paused at the entrance and looked back. Take care of each other, she said, and Commander, do not make me regret this. The door closed behind her. Stared at the pendant in his hand. The weight of what had just happened was still settling in. Moved closer to him. Her hand covered his, covering the pendant, covering everything that had changed. She released you, said softly. You are free. It seems so. Then I must ask you properly. Lifted her other hand and touched his face gently. Of Earth, iron human, bearer of the, will you allow me to claim you? Will you let me be your sponsor, your partner, she hesitated over the word. Your everything. Looked into her silver eyes. He saw the centuries of life she had lived, the battles she had fought, the loneliness she had hidden behind duty and rank. He saw the woman who had sat beside his medical pod for 3 days, watching him fight death. Yes, he said. Outside the viewport, a new star rose over the horizon of a distant planet. Its light filled the observation deck, washing over them both. Leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his, an intimate gesture in culture, reserved only for those closest to the heart. Then you are mine, she whispered, and I am yours for as long as the stars burn. In the corridor outside, walked alone toward her quarters. The empty space at her chest where the pendant used to rest felt strange. But her steps were light, her heart was clear, and somewhere deep inside, she knew she had made the right choice. Some bonds were stronger than law. Some loves were worth setting free. And somewhere in the observation deck, 2 hearts that had found each other against all odds began writing a new story, one that would be told across the galaxy for generations to come. The story of the human who refused to die, and the commander who learned to love.